Hello and welcome back to the Seeker's Reset. I am Robert and I am the host of this channel, and I am putting out a call. My videos have been lackluster because I haven't organized them well enough, and I need to take more time to do that. And so in the interim, I know that I can be more effective at sharing what I have to say if I have a partner or partners in conversation or interview. And so if anyone who comes across this would like to participate in that kind of a format with me, then I would love to talk to you. Um, Otherwise, eventually I'm going to have to put more effort into really organizing what I have to say and to share. It's not really a great service to anyone if I don't do that. I sense that it's been very diluted. And that's especially true for the video I did just a day or so ago on this particular topic, the spiritual roots of inflation. It's a really good topic because it's germane to what's happening in the world. And so it might have more meaning to a lot of people and might help them apply these things more readily to their own lives. Because I believe that the concept of the reset is very relevant in our world in general. That's why the Great Reset took on such infamy, because we are in a reset moment as a collective, or we could be. And I think we're missing the opportunity. And similarly, you and I, as seekers, we often miss the opportunity to have our reset, and we continue the search instead of going through the real work of the reset itself, which is, at the end of the day, the goal. It's just very painful. But there's ultimately no escaping that, sadly. Sadly or not. Just, it's difficult. Let me delve into this topic again, hopefully a bit more precisely. The bottom line of what I mean by the spiritual roots of inflation is that our economic problems and our economic issues are always going to be based in our choices, and our choices are always going to be governed ultimately by the condition of our soul. And this is something that you can learn a lot about in Divine Truth. And the condition of our soul, of course, is a spiritual root to the problems that symptomatically become material, financial, economic. But that's not the actual cause. The cause is us, the people behind the system. We are causing the system to work or not work, to be inflated or deflated, or to be precise and at parity with real value. So we, ultimately, our choices, our decisions, and therefore our spiritual conditions determine economic outcomes. And so in that simple way, inflation or any other economic circumstance is going to be a product of who we are spiritually and what we do and believe and decide spiritually. Now, inflation itself, as a specific symptom of spiritual problems, inflation itself occurs when we throw more and more money at a problem that can't be resolved with money, can only be resolved inside of us, spiritually, emotionally. So we begin to throw money at it, and over time, that money becomes less and less valuable because it's not delivering, right? So value is a thing. I personally have not fully grasped how value works in the universe, but there appears to be almost like a law of value that it's like a principle of value. And if we are divorced from it, or if we forget what it means for something to have value, which means to serve our spiritual development and our spiritual fulfillment first, to serve love, to serve truth, to serve our soul's evolution, if the things that we do and the things that we create become more and more separated from those primary principles and goals, then we will divorce our creations from the value, from value. And we will wind up essentially creating things that actually have no value or don't matter. And we will wind up doing more and more and more of that. And that's what's going to create this inflation, which is actually almost directly proportionate to waste. Waste and inflation go hand in hand. The more inflated an economy is, the more waste you will find within it, because we are wasting our energy trying to use money or material things to resolve a spiritual problem. A simple example is to relate this to an addict. An addict may feel wonderful, quote unquote, when using his or her drug of choice. But eventually that addict will likely discover that they can spend all the money they want buying drugs and using them. And that doesn't just have to be drugs. What I mean by drugs is whatever we use to meet our addictions. It could be pornography, it could be codependent relationship, it could be television, it could be work, many, many things. Whatever it is that we're using to meet the addictions inside of us, which help us avoid the real problems, eventually we will do those things more and more and more and discover they have less and less ability to help us. More and more drugs, more and more alcohol, more and more cigarettes, more and more porn, more and more of almost anything material, even things that seem healthy. In my case, more and more exercise, more and more nutritional strategies, more and more supplements. Eventually, we will realize that these things, we can pump money into them, we can spend energy on them, but they will not resolve the underlying problems, the underlying spiritual, emotional, and sexual problems. I'm borrowing, as usual, from Divine Truth. Divine Truth basically refers to 4 levels of our being, and they are spiritual, emotional, sexual, and physical. So inflation is waste. Inflation is wasted energy, wasted time, wasted attention, wasted creation, wasted money, because it's all being thrown at the wrong target. We see this happening in our healthcare system in the United States as well. I mean, it's happening around the world, but in the US, it's particularly obvious. Again, we're trying to solve emotional, spiritual problems that are manifesting physical symptoms in almost purely physical ways. So we're spending almost trillions of dollars more now in on healthcare, and the outcomes are at best plateauing, if not declining. That's also inflation, but people aren't relating the two very easily. Think about how much we spend now in the United States on political campaigns. The amount of money spent on political campaigns keeps going up and up and up. The amount of time, the amount of attention we pay to it, going up and up and up. And yet, are we getting better outcomes as a society? I think that depends who's in office. You might say if your team is in office, you might feel that's happening. But I would argue, and I'm not going to make a big case here, but I would argue that overall, the outcomes are at best plateauing and more likely are declining. That we're heading closer to disorder, disharmony, civic unrest rather than solving the problems contributing to those things. And yet we're spending more and more money on the campaigns to put people in office to solve those problems. So this inflation issue is actually, it's more than just prices at the grocery store. It's happening in every major sector of our lives. Entertainment, even. It costs more and more money. But is it really going up in quality? I actually don't really know because I don't watch much of it. But my sense of it is that overall, we're bored of what's out there. We're not really turned on by it. We've lowered our standards so that we don't feel as bad about how little we're getting a return on investment in every way in our lives. So we're actually lowering our standards instead. This is another very negative outcome of not addressing the root cause. So we wind up lowering our standards. It's actually a very, very difficult subject, and it's very, very personal for me because I have been through this and continue to go through it. Like I was at what I thought was the top of my game in life 3 years ago. And it turns out I was just incredibly inflated. I had an inflated sense of my capacity, an inflated sense of my growth, an inflated sense of my knowledge. Like across the board, I was inflated. And so when I crashed, which was almost inevitable, just like an inflated economy almost inevitably will crash, the crash was so severe and it hurts so much, and it still does, because I'm still not really addressing the root causes. I'm still resisting it. I'm still holding on to the lie and the image of what I wanted to be and what I spent so much of my life trying to be. And again, that's the same recipe for inflation. Let's keep trying to be more of this thing that isn't really working. Let's be more of it. Not let's stop it. Not let's look at why are we doing this in the first place. Let's try to be more of it. And that's inflation. And it is bound to crash eventually. And for those of you who are aligning with my story and even perhaps like my quote unquote timeline, that you're going through similar things at similar times in your lives, well, we're kind of like experiencing what the country, the United States, and probably a great portion of the world will eventually experience when the lie is no longer possible to maintain. And when I say the lie, I'm not referring to conspiracy here. I'm referring to just a almost global self-deception that we're all participating in. And to this day, one of the greatest sins that I continue to commit in my own life, like at the core belief level, is I'm vain. I have nothing. I'm in the worst health, not ever, but in most of my life. I don't look particularly good. I certainly don't look as good as I used to. I'm not as strong as I used to be. I'm not as fit. I'm not as successful. I'm broken in so many ways, and yet I still have a very vain streak. It comes from shame. I don't want to feel the shame of not being popular, influential, good looking in the room, the smartest, the best looking. That's what I always wanted. And so I pursued avenues in my life to reinforce that rather than questioning, why do I need that? And that's the same principle in inflation. We're arguing about the prices of things, but what do we really need? What do we actually need? Because the one of the core questions of value and one of the core questions that inflation raises, and ultimately that will help, it's one of the blessings of inflation, is it begs the question of what do we actually need? Because prices are going up. So we need to pay more attention. What do we actually need? I have been facing this all the time. And I can say positively that my faith in something is growing, and that thing is that somehow I am getting what I need. I'm not getting what I want or wanted, but what I want or wanted was vain. It was based in lies. It was based in misunderstandings of who I am and what I really want. And a lot of it came from just wanting to avoid shame and guilt and fear and anger. Most of my life was predicated on avoiding those things and on pretending that I was something that I'm actually not. And now I feel like there is something greater than me, God, a benevolent universe that's giving me what I need, but it's like, it's painful because it's nowhere near what I want to show the world. Like I have almost no money, but I seem to have just enough all the time. I don't sleep very much, but I seem to get just enough sleep so that I remain relatively healthy. I'm not getting the opportunities that I want for jobs or business, but I am getting something. Today I worked for the first time in a long time for pay. And I worked at a farm doing maintenance, mostly stocking a freezer for the customers and doing some cleaning. And I was looking at these customers, all very, very like high-end people shop at this particular farm store. And I was remembering like what it felt like when I was on that side of the equation. And now I'm on the other side. It's incredibly humbling. But it's what I need to grow, to meet myself in ways I've never met myself. I could have all the money in the world, but if I don't know how to take care of myself and what I really need, it doesn't matter. It actually doesn't matter. And so one of the weird things that I'm becoming aware of is that even as I think of getting my financial act together and I imagine having more money, I feel the pain inside of me and I say to myself, that pain's not going to really, most of that pain is not going to go away from having more money. I've reached a point in my life that I can't seem to solve the problems of what really causes me pain with anything external. I can only briefly numb it, cope with it, and then they're back. And this is the same process that has gone on with us in terms of printing money in the economy. We have, since the 1970s, we have printed money periodically in very large quantities, particularly after crises, whether it was something like 9/11 or the 2008 financial crisis or COVID. We've printed money at these periods and printed it beyond that too in other times, but like large quantities at those times. And what has happened? Through that time, the printing of money has become less and less effective at addressing the economic issues. and it will never solve them. The only thing that money can do is grow the lie. It cannot grow the solution. In fact, money can't grow anything unless it is aligned with real value and truth. And the only way that money aligns with real value and truth is if the people creating and utilizing the money are aligned with love and truth and value. So we have to align ourselves. If we want to fix the economy, if we want to fix the political system, if we want to fix our healthcare system, we have to align with higher principles, higher spiritual principles. The system can't do it without us. The tools of the system can't work without us. AI won't fix it. Technology, tools, policies, organizations, all of them rely on each of us aligning with what is loving, true, and valuable. And if we do that, then we will address the underlying spiritual causes of the broader crisis. So that's the opportunity that we have. And I think I've shared at least a fair amount here about how this has applied in my reset process. And this is why I wanted to record the video again, because I do think this is really important. Watch the other one too. I said some interesting things in that one about like how you cannot inflate truth. That was an interesting point as well. Truth cannot be inflated. The real cannot be inflated. Only the fake can be inflated. Much like the Wizard of Oz, which I believe was actually about these subjects metaphorically. I believe there's an analysis of the Wizard of Oz that actually discusses these matters. So yeah, much like that. And I've personally been going through the harrowing process of finding that I am the little man behind the curtain. And I thought I was the great and powerful Oz. But fortunately, there is a higher power helping me somehow, and will help all of us who choose this. So have faith. And let's get to the root of our problems. Thank you for watching The Seeker's Reset. My name is Robert. I look forward to seeing you again soon. Take care.